Let's raise the big question. The Jaipur hit and run, public apathy caught on camera. How can we change it? That's the big question we're raising. Joining me tonight, Maxwell Pereira, former Joint Commissioner of Police in Delhi. Also joining me, Mridul Bhasin. She's the trustee Muskan. She lost her accident in a similar her daughter in a similar accident. She joins us live from Jaipur. And Steve Fernandez and Ruchita Mittal, they are road accident survivors who survived a similar incident on New Year's Eve in 2006. I appreciate all of you joining us. Let me come to you, Mridul Bhasin, because you are trustee of Muskan. What does it tell you what happened in Jaipur? You've been there, you've been listening to the stories of people there on the spot. Why do you believe what happened? What does it say about all of us?
See, there are two things you are asking me.
Yes.
Why people didn't help Kanhaiya Lal.
That's right.
I think that kind of apathy is very, very common, and not losing faith in goodness of human kindness. Still, that kind of failure of people helping other people is very, very common on the roads. And Kanhaiya Lal was one example, and since it was so pathetic and horrendous, we all are touched by it, and since channels are highlighting it. But this is happening day in and day out, every minute in our country. That people die and we turn a blind eye and go wherever we have to go. Now the other thing you are asking me, why it happened? Yes. I think there was a terrible system failure there. Because in this tunnel, no two-wheelers are supposed to enter.
Yes.
And while he entered, Kanhaiya Lal entered with two children and his wife, and poor guy had to suffer so terribly that he would not forget this for his life. He'll live with this. There is supposed to be a system where they don't allow two-wheelers to go.
Right.
And to presume that people will follow the rules is too presumptuous, because we barely ever follow the rules on the road.
You're saying at one level there was a complete systems failure. At another level, of course, there are serious questions to be raised about citizen apathy. I'm going to come back to you, Ms. Bhasin, in a moment. Let me just bring in Maxwell Pereira, because Mr. Pereira, ever since I put up this question on my Twitter site asking what can we do to change it, people are saying what you need to do is change the police. The police need to show sympathy, because people are afraid of the police or going to the hospital and taking a hit and run victim to the hospital. How do you respond to that? That the fear of the police, in a sense, is what is responsible for public apathy?
Rajdeep, unfortunately,
yes.
This particular psyche, the human psyche, wanting some excuse or the other to, whatever wrong they themselves do, falls so flat, and it's so apathetic itself. The very attitude to find a reason why they do this wrong thing.
I concede that. I concede that. But do you also accept that there is the fear of the police of taking a hit and run accident victim to the hospital, or do you believe that is simply people copping out?
That's an unjustified fear. I think the Supreme Court has come very hard on this. It was over a decade ago that the Supreme Court, made it very clear that nobody who takes an injured to the hospital will be harassed. He can even walk away without giving his...
Right. I'm going to come back to Mr. Pereira in a moment. Let me go to Ruchita Mittal and Steve Fernandez there in Bombay. Ruchita and Steve, tell us your case. You were coming back on the 1st January 2006. You were coming back from a New Year's party. A driver who was totally drunk ran into your taxi. You suffered injuries. Did you find that the people of Mumbai were ready to help you?
Rajdeep, in this talk of public apathy and social consciousness, I think we were fortunate. The drunk driver rammed our taxi head on, and it left the taxi driver and my wife, who was behind the taxi driver, semi-conscious. I want to say that my belief that the city has a soul was reinstated. Passers-by, 3 to 4 taxi drivers instantly rushed. I was still conscious. Took my wife and the taxi driver, they held them and rushed to Saifi Hospital, which was just 200 meters away. Saifi Hospital at Chandni Road.
Right.
And the best thing about it was, 2 taxi drivers said, "Sir, there may be procedures, police procedures, hospital procedures, legal procedures. हमें डर नहीं है. This is our duty." So Rajdeep, the city as a soul was reinstated. We were fortunate.
So what you're saying then to me is that it's not, we cannot generalize. We cannot generalize that there is citizen apathy. You do believe that there are lots of good citizens out there, is it?
Yes, and I'm not saying just in Mumbai, it could be Jaipur, Delhi. What I'm trying to say is you cannot paint everyone with one brush.
Yes.
Saying there's no social consciousness, samajik zimmedari nahi hai. There are pockets.
Ruchita,
reinstatement
you agree with Steve?
Yeah, hi.
You agree with Steve when he says
Yes,
that?
see, I mean,
yes, go ahead.
Yes, I do, because I have to, because I've heard stories. I mean, even though, I mean, I was very badly injured in this accident, and luckily Steve got away with no injuries, even though he was in the same vehicle with the same impact.
Right.
It's just a matter of chance. I mean, because I had broken fingers and a broken smashed hip, I was not, I mean, in my senses to really look around what's happening. I just have some vague images of being lifted and being kept put in some vehicle and being just taken to some hospital. So I don't remember the things too clearly. But yes, I am aware of that we were helped very much, and I remember being helped by, I mean, strangers. I mean, somebody put me in somebody's car's back seat, and I mean, Steve knows better because obviously he was conscious. I was, you know, in pain.
Let me just take that. Let me take that. Yes, go ahead. Yes, Steve.
Rajdeep, there was the interesting point is that they still felt that ordinary citizens do get into hassles, but they said we'll take the hassles in our stride. So it was not that they didn't have the fear of hassles.
Right.
They said we'll take it in our stride. Mr. Pereira very clearly said that the Supreme Court has had a ruling where you can walk away even without giving a name. But the taxi drivers there didn't know of this ruling. They thought they would be in a lot of hassle.
You know,
I can just say we were lucky. I mean, that's
no, you were lucky, but for everyone who's lucky like you, there are others, as we've seen, like Kanhaiya Lal, Mridul Bhasin.
Exactly.
But can we generalize?
Yes, we know that.
No, I don't think.
But just think, don't generalize.
Mridul Bhasin, hold on.
I remember there was one particular gentleman there
whose
car took me to the hospital. I mean, who offered the back seat of his car.
But we lifted up because we were just 200 meters.
Kept, I mean, lying down position. He even gave us his cell number and he said, call me if anything you need me.
Okay,
I remember this. I was in touch with him for a couple of months.
Let me just take your story to Mridul Bhasin. Mridul Bhasin, let's turn back to Kanhaiya Lal. Is Kanhaiya Lal the exception or the rule?
He is, again, you know, I'll not say that there are good people, but again, shying away from generalizing too widely, I would say that when it happens on the highway and villagers around help a lot, while in the city people pass by. You know, that is a sort of an observation we have made. People in the villages are more forthcoming to help anybody in distress, while in the city people don't do that. But still, I would agree with Steve and his wife that every city has a soul, people have a soul, and more and more this should be publicized, that you will not be hassled by people. There is a ruling, this should be hoarding should be put around to tell people, and that is part of awareness generation, that you will not be hassled.
Do you believe that most people believe that they will be hassled? Do you still believe that most people are not aware that you can take a person, a hit and run victim, to the police station and you don't necessarily have to get into a system where you will be called again and again?
Yes, actually currently we are working that the doctor who examines should not be called to the hospital, to the court again and again. His you know, written document should be taken up, because doctors also fight shy of, they know they are harassed, called into the court to say again and again, did this person die because of the injury or some other reason, you know.
Right.
So the procedure should be made so short that people don't fight shy of going to the court and don't get scared that they will be hassled.
But you know, at the end of the day, the reality is people are scared, Maxwell Pereira. You know, I know you're saying that there is a court order. Many people are not aware of it. And an important point made by Mridul Bhasin, she claims that people in rural India are perhaps more willing to help than those in urban India. In urban India, people are so involved in their own lives. You can see those people going by. It appears, you know, that for them, they just want to go back to their workplace. The fact that there is someone crying for help doesn't seem to affect them. We saw that even in the Delhi gang rape case. Do you believe that that is the big difference? That there is a sense that urban India in particular has become so apathetic because we are all so involved in our own world. And it's not only about the hassle that you might face if you went to the police station.
Rajdeep, I compliment you first of all for finding people like Steve and Ruchika who had a positive story to tell. That having, and you know, this particular story that the very fact that has been highlighted by you, and this should be repeated again and again to instill that kind of confidence in the public. Yes, there are people of this nature who will help, and thus that will be a great thing that you have done. Now, that having said, I again reiterate the point that I had earlier made. The publicity to this aspect has been given a lot. It should be given more and more. I think the police everywhere in the country should try and publicize it more. Number two, the Supreme Court has also made it mandatory to even a private doctor who earlier used to refuse to treat a patient brought to him, saying it's a medical legal case and it should be taken to a government facility.
Right.
And even that has been waived off, and these are the kind of things that should be known to the public. And it is incumbent on every medical officer, a medical doctor, to render first aid, whatever is immediately required.
Right.
He has to give. And
but do you believe but Mr. Pereira, do you believe that in general this is a systems failure? It's okay to blame the citizen, yes, but in the US, the moment you ring the emergency number, immediately the police vehicle or the emergency ambulance will come there. In India, there is a fear that it's an entire systems failure. It's about the fear of the police, it's the fear that systems may not work, that the ambulance may not come on time. Do you accept that this is really a collective failure, that we haven't been able to instill the confidence in all of us? That if an injured person has to be taken to hospital, the procedure will be quick, fast and not bureaucratic?
No, instilling the confidence is a two-way path. It's not really, it can't be done only by one side. Yes. If somebody is determined to, hold on to certain inhibitions and certain fears, as you put it, yes, then I'm afraid that fear is something that needs to be taken off, and a person should be receptive enough to take it off. But the unfortunate thing is, the tendency is to find an excuse. Right. Like, for instance, all these fears are imaginary fears. It's not real fear. It is the sheer, cussed determination, right, not to be involved, not to, to look the other way and go your own way.
I get your point. I get your point, but it's easier said than done. And interestingly, in the case of Ruchita and Steve, I presume from what you were saying that it was the anonymous taxi driver, the good old taxi driver of Mumbai, who was willing to go out of the way to help you. It wasn't the rich and famous who were stopping their cars, but it was the average Aam Aadmi.
And Rajdeep, it was 6 a.m. and right, these guys, some sort of milk vendors and those other guys who are usually up and about at 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. They are the ones who just rushed. There's another point I want to make. Mr. Maxwell Pereira has very rightly said that there should be a campaign, nationwide campaign, and there already has been. But sadly, it has not percolated to the general public, because stories I've heard, other than my personal experience, from my friends, colleagues at work, whenever there's an accident and some people have the will to go and help, the one thought that comes in their mind is, police ke chakkar mein fansna nahi. Right. This campaign has not percolated down to the common man, but that there's no problem going to the police or to the hospital.
Police and court.
And court.
Okay, the
so
fear
there is a fear.
There is a fear of the court. Let's be honest about that. Mridul Bhasin, has this campaign, you're a trustee of Muskan, you lost your daughter in a similar accident that drove you to set up this organization. Do you believe that that enough has been done to communicate it across India? That what we've seen in Jaipur, will that may shake the collective conscience of the country today because news channels are playing it, but come tomorrow we'll be back to normal? Do you believe we need a sustained campaign by the police, by possibly civic authorities, to tell people that you can help a person who suffered from a hit and run without having to go through the hassles, as they call it, of the courts?
Yes, I do believe that there are enough laws, and the laws haven't reached people, and we need campaigns to reinforce that there are laws, and also the fact that roads, there are high amount of 140,000 people die in India. It's like more than a tsunami every year which keeps sweeping the country. Right. So we should highlight it as much as we are highlighting the Nirbhaya case. you know, the comparison is very not very right, you know,
Yes.
it is unequal. But then the fact is that we are losing human lives, and for nothing, just because we do not care for laws,
Yes.
because the government is as apathetic as people, as citizens, we are very apathetic. But other than that, I want to highlight the point that there are rules and there are systems. They are not functioning.
Right.
In this case, there are three angles to the whole thing. See, there is the government who put this project together. There is a concessionaire who made the tunnel.
Right.
It's not a road, it's a tunnel.
Right.
And a tunnel is a very restricted approach place.
Sure.
And these two-wheelers are not supposed to go in. So how did this gentleman, and for 3 months now, people are going, two-wheelers are
Right.
going, getting into it. There was nobody from the concessionaire.
Right.
As per his MOU, there should have been security to stop people. There
Right.
should have been people from the police department telling people not to go, or, you know, fining them or whatever.
Right.
And then the criminal liability of the concessionaire. And then the help didn't reach him. We didn't see any first aid, you know, van around in the CCTV.
Yeah.
So how much time did it take? It should be at the switch of a button. The CCTV shows there's an accident. The switch of a button, the medical aid should come.
That's right.
So nothing happened.
I think what you're making is, at the end of the day, the absolutely right point, that this at the end of the day is a complete failure of all of us. We, the citizens who've been apathetic, a system which doesn't respond effectively enough, and at the end of the day, if we don't act to help our own, then what can we expect from the government? It's time that citizens realize to wake up their conscience and use that to wake up the system. We need a strong communication campaign, if not anything else, to tell people about the importance to help hit and run victims. I appreciate all my panelists joining us. Maybe this Kanhaiya Lal incident in Jaipur will be a wake-up call for all of us. Thank you very much for joining us. Remember, 140,000 people dying every year in similar incidents. When will the system and all of us wake up? Let's